Right, this is really just to give you some hints if you're struggling with your homework. So the whole aim of the homework is just a wee bit to go over about topologies. So all a topology is essentially how the network's laid out. So all you'd see is you'd see dots, which are nodes, and you'll see lines, which are channels. So these nodes could be a computer, desktop or a laptop, or a server. It could be a printer. They could represent hubs and switches, etc. And your channel just represents how these devices are linked to each other. So it might be wired or it could be wireless. So what we'll do, we'll just quickly go over the different topologies and then I'll explain the difference between a switch and a hub. So the first one we looked at is the ring topology, and this is probably the least stable of them all because what you have are all the nodes linked together in a ring. And what this means is if there's a failure in a channel, the network doesn't work, or if there's a failure in the node, the network doesn't work. Okay, so if there's a channel failure, that means there's a network failure. So we could just say channel failure, or channel fails, network fails. So this is the least robust of them all. And that's the ring network. The next one we look at is called the star network. So this is when they're all attached to a central node, and quite often that central node might be a router or a hub. So they're all attached to a central node, and with this network, if we maybe have a channel failure, this means that that node won't be connected to the rest of the network, so the rest of the network functions fine. So any of these channels that fail just isolates the node that's connected to it, but the rest of the network's fine. The downside is if this node, so if the central node fails, the network fails. So a central node failure the central node fails, the network fails. So that's a star network. Now, with the star network, if we actually decide to join all the nodes together, we get something called a mesh network. So this is when we have these nodes and then we just connect them all together. And this is the most robust network that you can actually have. So every single node is connected to every other node. It's the most expensive one because obviously you're having to pay for all these connections, but it's the most robust because what happens if a channel fails? Well, the traffic just gets routed through another channel to get to the node, and if a node fails there, then there's other options for the traffic to go from one node to another. So that is called the mesh one. So it's most expensive but the most robust. Okay, so the ring one's the least robust and the mesh one's the most robust. Then the very last network is called the bus network. This is when we have terminators at each end and a main channel. And this main channel has all the nodes connected to it. Now, these terminators are actually just to make sure that, I'll get another colour of pen, say that's A, B, C and D. Okay, now if A wanted to send C data, what would actually happen? It would go down the channel, it would then split in two because it's got an option to go left or right. I would go to C, but I would continue along to D, and I would continue to the end as well. Okay, so the traffic just goes down any channel available. Now the reason why we have a terminator is we don't want the data bouncing back, because it would then start causing interference and more traffic. So what the terminator does, it's like a buffer. It absorbs the signals going into it, and it doesn't allow it to reflect. So if you're ever at a pond and you throw a rock in, you'll see the waves hit the side of the pond and then come all the way back. This just absorbs that. Now this is quite a good network. If a channel fails, obviously that node can't send data. However, if the main channel fails, the whole network fails. So main channel failure, or main channel fails, network fails. Okay, so that's essentially all the topologies you need to know. What we're going to look at is we'll go back to the star one, and then I'll just explain the difference between a switch and a hub. So if we look at, we'll just quickly draw another network and link them to the central node. So we'll call this A, B, C, D, and an E. Now imagine A wanted to send D data with a hub. So if we make the central node a hub, what happens is the data goes down to A. From A goes to the hub. Now the hub's not very clever. The hub will send that data to any other node attached to it. So I'll send it to C, I'll send it to E, send it to B, and I'll send it to D, which is we're wanting to go from A to D. Okay, so hub is cheap. However, it sends data to all nodes, and this is really bad for network traffic. Okay, so it increases traffic. So it is cheaper, but the reason why it's cheaper is it's not intelligent. It doesn't just send it to the node that it's destined for. Okay, so that's what we do using a hub. Now the other alternative to a hub, slightly more expensive, but it's more intelligent in terms of, it's called a switch. And what a switch does is when you send A sends data to D, and it goes to the switch and it only sends it to D. Okay, so it takes a packet of data in and it only sends it to the actual node it's meant for. Okay, so it decreases network traffic. So the majority of the questions for your homework are just about these topics. Okay, so decreases network traffic, data just sent to correct node. And hopefully that's helped a wee bit.